and welcome to Connecting the Dots podcast, connecting people and systems. We are brilliant minds talking to brilliant minds from education, manufacturing, public service, and beyond, exploring the dynamic interplay between people and the systems that drive their successes. Discover how you can connect more dots into your own life and work. Hello, Luke. How are you?
I'm very well, Sam, I think.
Excellent.
And how are you?
I'm very well, I've got a bit of sciatica, but that's okay. I've got a new chair coming, so we'll see how that is. Now, you've brought Amanda as our fabulous guest to today. So tell us all about Amanda.
Well, Amanda is founder of Building 20, and she is the principal consultant as well. So I'm delighted to have her here. But for me, what's really exciting about Amanda is just the way and the range of when she thinks about systems and people. So we met maybe 10 years ago. Does that sound
Nowhere near as long as that, Luke. Don't age me.
okay? Right. So we met
Yesterday.
yesterday, basically.
Oh God, maybe it was 10. No, eight. Eight. It wasn't 10 years ago.
Okay, it was close to that then. And you know, Amanda really kind of introduced me to working in the NHS and the challenges and the complexities of that. But also, one of the things that we've had an ongoing conversation about and continue to do so is around this idea of organizational peace as well, which I think is just such a lovely idea because I think it's the synergy, Sam, between the systems and the people that you're so keen on. So I'm just absolutely delighted to have Amanda here today.
Thanks, Luke.
And
Mhm.
Amanda, you told us that you like to take buses, even though you don't live in London anymore,
Even though I
which,
don't live in London or
yeah,
even in a big city, I do.
yeah,
If I can take the bus or the train, but
yeah.
local travel, if I can get the bus, I would like to get the bus. I think they're just great. Fun things happen. They get
Yeah,
you
they
there.
certainly
You don't
do.
have to drive yourself.
No.
It's wonderful.
It's like a massive
But
limousine, really, isn't it? I suppose.
yeah, and the only problem with buses is they often don't run enough, and
Mm.
that's because not enough people get them. So I would love to share my enthusiasm for getting the bus because the more people outside of London that got the bus, then they might run a bit more,
Mm.
and then that would be even better. And on bus lanes, I love an express bus. They're really good, like where they don't stop too much, but they get you between the
Yeah,
towns.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
What's not to like?
Well, I could come up with a few things, but that's fine. We'll leave it for another day.
Brilliant. Well, okay, let's dive in then. I think, Amanda, it'd just be really great to get like as a starter, what do you see as some of the organizational systems that are really challenging at the moment?
Some of the organizational systems that are really challenging.
Wow, Luke, you've gone straight bang in there. You haven't even
Gosh,
eased it in slowly.
that's a big question. I mean, the thing that is immediately coming to mind, a lot of my background's in the public sector. You mentioned about the NHS. I was working in the NHS for a long time. A lot of people who I used to work with are coming through, I mean, maybe 5, 6 rounds of reorganization and redundancy off the trot. Um, so it seems to feel like before one massive reorganization change process is finished, another one has already started. Just kind of it's been wave after wave. Um, and that I think that there is a system in that because it's something about how we move into this new world of volatility in our organizations and how we can change and adapt. And it seems that too often decision making is stuck in this dynamic of, well, we need to adapt, so we need to change. And the playbook is look at your people, look at your organizational structure and move boxes and lines. Change people's jobs that, that when people say change in an organization, what they are imagining that is changing is the people coming to work and and the job titles that they hold. And so I think because of that lack of imagination about how we adapt to new challenges, going straight for job role structure every single time, we now have really bruised workforce, particularly in the public sector. I think, you talk about that interplay between the systems and the people. Well, that seems like a massive one for me because yes, we need to organise, we need to be fit for purpose organisations that are good value for money and organised in a way to do the work necessary. And at the same time, we live in time, we have history, and all of that baggage and history that those individual human beings who have been through these cycles of change bring every single time that happens becomes part of what is possible in the future as well. And it feels like that's becoming an ever smaller range of action. Every single time we lose goodwill, we lose hope, we lose trust, people become more anxious, less flexible, less able to deal with change. There is a new change. What do we do? People aren't being responsive. Right, we'll do another round of organizations or reorganization. And it just kind of it feels very much like we're stuck in a loop. I think that is, in my world, that feels like the big challenge that to have a magic wand and say, let's do it a different way. How might we face into this big, how might we face into the future, into some new big challenge or opportunity without saying that we're doing job role reorganization and redundancies? Like what creativity might that spark to think about how we can change in that way?
Just on that point then, Amanda, because you covered a lot in there. Like the counter argument is, and like we've seen it over the last kind of 2 years, is like these people have a job to do, they get paid very well to do it. So what does it matter if the job titles change and the roles change? Like there is this kind of this perhaps political mindset, which is, yeah, they just need to be flexible. They've signed up to these jobs, and this is part of the job, adapting to constant redundancy rounds and restructures.
A couple of things in that. I think one, the idea that everybody in the public sector is well paid is far from true, and the individuals who seem to be most affected by this kind of churn of reorganization, it's usually more junior staff in organizations. It's the people who are easy to move. So these are big organizational systems, even like often lots of organizations that have been cobbled together over the years, and it involves a whole load of different people doing lots of different roles. So we might have it in our mind about, well, the public sector or public service, and it's a particular kind of professional, but actually that's encompassing all possible job roles that you would have in any organization. That, yes, there will be senior policy leads, but there are also administrative assistants and receptionists and facilities managers, and they are just as affected, if not more so, by these processes because they are less involved usually in the decision making that goes along with it as well, and less exposed to the changes in climate that might mean that they might see these changes coming or understand how they fit into them. I think in terms of flexibility, it would be wonderful, right, if we were given jobs that flexibility was part of the job role. So alongside this issue of constant change is kind of held up by another expectation, which is that we will be static and um, and to draw very, very clear, inflexible boundaries around jobs, around roles, around organizational needs. So we are at A doesn't work anymore, so we'll need to change to B. B doesn't work anymore, so we'll need to change to C. And I think part of that creative move is to say the world is volatile now. Change is happening faster than we could reorganize around it. What would it mean to design the way that we organize and design our job roles so that people can move and shift? That's the aim, right? And I think it's possible, and I think there are some pitfalls as well, because I've certainly seen organizations go after that, and then it's easy to fall foul of that. So something that's really kind of trendy and common is having like a very basic job description, which says hardly anything in it at all. And then that means you can do any job and you can be moved around. And I think that can work well, and it can also go wrong really, really easily. And the two big ways I think it goes wrong really easily is one is around accountability. And it's difficult enough in the culture, particularly in the public sector, around holding people to account when they're not acting in good faith and when they're not doing their job properly. It's hard enough to do something about it and actually discipline those individuals. We've got a very, very poor track record on doing that well or fairly. And I think if you've got a very unclear job description, then that is just making it even more difficult to say what is expected of somebody. So I'm all for having flexible job descriptions, but I think they need to be done with real care and some smartness around it about what are we actually wanting to hold people account for in their roles so that that's in place.
And just
And then
jumping in there for a second, Amanda, because I know one of the things you're interested in is around like governance and accountability of systems. So do you just want to, firstly define both? Like what is the difference between governance and accountability? And what are the ways in which you think these large organizations that you've worked with have been either successful or failed in their governance?
Yeah. So I would say accountability is the state, right? So if you are making yourself accountable, it means that you will give an account of your decisions or actions. And governance is the process by which we could do that. And when we get together in an organization, we need to have some routines and processes around that we've sort of all signed up to make that work. And I think the problem when it goes wrong in organizations is that we think accountability and governance are the same thing. Governance is the stuff that we do. You know, we are going to come together as this committee and we are going to ask these particular questions, or we are going to show this set of data or evidence that we're collecting on going to a group of people, and they will scrutinize it. That is governance. Accountability is the what you get out of that. If you're lucky, if everybody comes at it in good faith. I think we've all seen fantastic governance systems where it should be really robust, and we've got this meeting and we know they're going to look at these reports, and actually we've got a fantastic diverse group of different stakeholders who will be looking at it, and then you come and no one's read the reports. And no one's willing to ask a challenging question because actually it's just going to open a big can of worms. And it goes on and on and on. And I think, people know how these things fail. And my work in looking at systems has really led me to the conclusion that we have to make ourselves accountable. And that's what's really, really tricky, is this idea that we can hold others to account. We do need to hold others to account, but at the end of the day, if others are not going to make themselves accountable, then there's very little within the remit of organisational governance that you can do about it.
So can I apply this to the current situation that is in the news today? So at the time of recording this, Keir Starmer's under a lot of people requesting for him to resign, and obviously working in education, I'm like, okay, well, if he does resign, that means we're going to have a whole new cabinet and a whole new load of ministers. And does it get to the point where accountability, I don't know, what am I trying to say? That actually, okay, yes, he's failed, but are we doing more damage by wanting to change the whole system than just going forward with it as it is? Does that make sense, what I'm trying to
I think
say?
that does make sense, and I think
Yeah.
and I would love there to be a right answer to that. And this is the big challenge with accountability when it really matters, is it's hard to say what the right answer is. That's why it's accountability. And governance systems are often written in such a way where it's like a flow diagram, and we'll make this decision and we'll do that, and then we'll know that we've made the right decision. And with accountability, you don't know it's the right decision. Accountability is saying this is actually it could, maybe Keir Starmer should resign, maybe he should stay for the good of stability, and someone has to step up and say it's my job to make that decision, and I'm going to make that call, and I will stand by it. And in the future, if it turns out that I was wrong, and then I will look to repair those harms. So people need to make themselves accountable, because at the end of the day, there's lots of people telling Keir Starmer he should resign, and he's the only one who can resign.
Yeah.
Who can resign. And obviously there are ways that they can make him go eventually, but a lot of our accountability systems do rest on people making themselves accountable. And the other part that needs to happen to make that work is that accountability comes with what I call a restorative consciousness. Because what is the point of all of this? So Keir Starmer has made a bad decision, clearly, about Peter Mandelson in the past and potentially other things. This is what everybody is upset about. But so what is the point of accountability in this situation? If Keir Starmer resigns, is that enough? Is that it? I think for real accountability to be in place, it's about how do we repair these relationships of broken trust, material harm, that have occurred. I love this. Luke said this to me, and I use it all the time. So this is your line, Luke. How are we going to live together tomorrow? I think that is the question. How are we going to live together tomorrow? And that's what guides really good accountability. So bringing it back to that idea about flexible job descriptions, which is so far away from our national politics, but I think the principles still hold. That somebody is acting in bad faith at work, they're the only ones who really can make themselves accountable for that. And the question then is, how are we going to live together tomorrow? As the line manager of somebody not doing their job at work, possibly behaving inappropriately at work, how are we going to live together tomorrow? I then have a role as a line manager to be fair, and compassionate and human, but being very clear about what the boundaries are around that. How are we going to live together tomorrow? You're not going to work here because you are making this place unsafe. How are we going to work together? How are we going to live together tomorrow? I will need to see clear evidence that you are changing your behavior or making amends for harms that have been done. And I think a lot of that feels very soft, it feels very interpersonal, but actually the building blocks of it sit in systems that we can design in advance, sit in things like job descriptions. And you asking me things that people find surprising about me. I think my enthusiasm for getting very boring bits of technical stuff right so that they support good interpersonal relationships is one of the things that probably surprises people. I think, being really genuine about things like role descriptions, things like terms of references for meetings, all of those governance mechanics is my massive bugbear when people just go, oh, well, it can just be anything. Oh, well, just get it written. It doesn't really matter. It drives me mad. If it doesn't really matter, then why are we doing it? So let's make it matter.
So at what point, as both of you as systems people, okay, because I've worked with a lot of organizations, whatever, where they have so many discussions about how to do what they're going to do that they're not actually doing it. And I just go, just do something. Just for the love of God, do something. And when I work with a lot of people on the ground level supporting vulnerable people, they feel frustrated by the number of meetings they have to go to discuss how to do it, and then they'll change their mind. Meanwhile, they've still got that vulnerable person that they have to support day to day. So, as systems people, at what point do you go, look, good enough is good enough, and we haven't got to involve all the stakeholders because, quite frankly, that's just delaying it. How do you sort of build that, I don't know, fail safe or security or whatever the word is into that system? Luke's already smiling at me now. But yeah, how do you do that?
Well, I have a response to that, Luke, but do you want to say something?
No. You go first.
So I think it's really easy when you get into systems thinking, assuming you've talked about systems thinking a lot before. It's really tempting to go down the track of systems control, systems design, so I'm a systems thinking now, and we've got to get it right. And get stuck in that. And I teach systems thinking to people, change in systems, and it's very common for people to sort of walk this path, which is the world doesn't really make sense. Now I've learned about systems dynamics. Oh, I now see how all of this makes sense, and now I know how to fix it all. I just need to get all the information, and and then we'll be able to design the perfect system. And then you try and do that, then you realize you can't have all the information. You should have known that before because of learning about systems. But it's still very tempting. You end up there anyway. Oh, I can't make this perfect system. I don't have time. I can't get all of the information together in one place. I want to involve all the stakeholders, and actually 70% of the stakeholders don't want to engage with me. Now I just feel really depressed and frustrated. And I think that's a very kind of common track to run. And then just to go back to surviving. So there's a real risk in learning about systems thinking, getting into systems change, where it all seems so impossible and big and unmanageable that either you're going to get stuck in total despair. I can't change any of these things. Working with people with complex lives, just like, oh my goodness, well, if I can't like reorganize social care in my town or possibly even the country, then I can't do anything to help this person. Like, why even bother? Like, this is all just awful. Or the other side, which is just apathy. Well, I can't do anything about this massive system. So as long as I'm all right, then that's good enough for me. And I'm not gonna worry too much about it, and I'm not gonna even try to change it because it's not really possible. I can't really do it. And I've got to, protect my own mental health and not get burnt out. These are all, they're really reasonable responses, this kind of despair or apathy. Um, and I think we have to choose a third way, which sounds really, really soft and hippie and naive, but I think it's just the way it is, which is hope. We just have to go into situations with hope that small changes that we can make in the direction that we are hoping for will just sort of slowly move us forward. Being realistic about the fact that we're a small part of a massive, massive system, and with the hope that small steps in the right direction are the only thing that ever make big system change happen. So showing up with hope. So in those kind of meetings where it is like, people are just, well, we'll just do another deep dive and we want to get it right and we must do it this way. My rubric, I mean, like you saying about my business building 20, like this 3 questions are the only thing we do. So this is all our intellectual property, like out the window. Like, you can have it, it's fine. Like, this is all we ever do, which is to just ask, what's your best hope here? What do you want here? If things were to change in a way that was good, that was useful, how would we know? Like that, where are we actually trying to head to? Quite often people haven't really thought about that, or they think they've thought about it, but actually everybody's thought slightly different things. So getting a very clear, explicit picture of what do we actually want to happen here, whether that's a big organizational change or just with one individual having a problem with their housing in their life, to start with that question, what do we really hope will be different from us getting together and working together? If it came true, how would we know? What are all the tiny, tiny signs of that coming true? Because it's all in the everyday, daily things. Change happens by people just showing up and doing whatever they were going to do differently. One of my teachers in solution-focused interviewing once said, if you can get somebody to brush their teeth in a way that's consistent with their preferred future, then you'll really have change. Like, how can you make that that desired, hopeful direction so real a part of every single little daily thing that the people involved do that it just becomes inevitable because they're now even brushing their teeth that is in a way that is consistent with them, getting a job or finding a house or whatever it might be. So where do you want to get to? How would you know if you got there? And of those things, what's already happening? And that's where the magic really happens. And it's so tempting to ask people, how far have you got left to go? Like that's the typical management consultant thing to ask, isn't it? Like what are the steps to where you want to go to now from here? And actually humans change by asking, what have you already done that's got you this far? And then the magic happens. There's something in asking that question. What have you already done that's got you this far? And how were you able to do that? And what was feeding into that? What was going on around you? What were the skills that you drew on to get that to happen? What resources did you have available to you? And I think there's something going on there with how we use the availability of our mental availability of kind of concepts, that when we really are challenged to reflect on all the good stuff we've got going for us and how we've got so far, you don't need to then work out with people, like analyze it little bit by bit and build it like a Meccano set, how they next go about it. Because actually, tomorrow the world might change and be different. But if you've made people really, really aware of all of their capability to have got as far as they've come, it's like a toolbox that you've reminded them that they have. And then tomorrow, when tomorrow is different, they've got that toolbox there and they can work out the steps, make that Meccano model as they go. Which, yeah, so it's like management consultancy back to front.
Yeah.
Nice. And so a question from me then, Amanda, is we've floated this idea of organizational peace, but do you want to explain what it is and how you see it fitting into the way you think about systems?
Yeah. So where did we come to organizational peace from? One of your colleagues, Luke, Terence, shared this idea with us, I think, about that or was it conflict is not the opposite of peace, violence is. Conflict is just the change that needs to emerge.
Well, I'm going to have to write that one down because I like that.
I know. So if conflict is not inherently violent, what might that mean for how we go about resolving conflicts? And if conflict is really wrapped up in what change is, conflict is the change that needs to emerge. I think that means that how we think about conflict, how we approach conflict is foundational for doing change well. And ever since hearing that, whenever people talk to me about change, we need a change program, I can substitute in, we've a conflict that we need to resolve. We have a conflict that we need to resolve. That's something that a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with making explicit. Not all interpersonal conflict, task conflicts of needs. We have a conflict of need in an organisation because we don't have enough money to pay all the staff that we have currently. So we need to pay staff. we're not able to pay stuff. This is there's a conflict of need here, and so that's where that change needs to come from, and so this idea of organisational peace comes out of trying to approach change in a way that is explicit about the conflicts that we're trying to resolve, and to resolve them in a way that is peaceful and not violent. Because also, since thinking about change in terms of conflict resolution, I became very, very aware about how violent a lot of organisational change is. Violent in terms of change processes that rely on a very asymmetric power dynamic. So one person or constituency or group can say, well, we want it this way, and we have such power over other people because we can make you redundant, or we can just make your job unpleasant, your daily life unpleasant, that we get our way. And it's, this is the change we want, and it's my way or the highway, basically. And I think that by itself is a very violent act, in terms of a violent way of resolving a conflict of need, because there's no compromise there. There's no looking for a shared win-win outcome. Back to that statement of how are we going to live together tomorrow? How are we going to live together tomorrow? We're going to live together exactly how I want us to live together, and you'll just have to deal with it because I pay you. And it becomes very sort of zero sum. So I think most people want to do better than that, though. We fall into these ways of behaving, but actually, when we can come to work with the best of our humanity, we want to work alongside with others. We just don't necessarily have great playbooks or great examples for how to do it. So organizational peace is about changing some of those playbooks, creating habits of the way to approach the conflicts that arise in organizations all the time, in a way where people can resolve them peacefully and feel like they have the confidence to resolve those peacefully.
So with that, Amanda, what would the governance of organizational peace look like?
Oh, that's a good question.
He's tricky, Amanda. He really is.
What would the governance of organizational peace look like? It would start with a very clear and explicit goal. Everyone says they need a vision for their organization. And I think they do. And it needs to really matter to everybody. You need to have a vision that everyone can sign up to. And also some people might choose not to sign up to it. This is the thing that we're trying to do. So all of those conflicts come back to that vision in their resolution, because that's what we're doing it for. Yeah. So I think there'd be a very clear vision. And then there's the bit that so often seems to get lost at the moment in governance and organizational life, which is about getting explicit about our ethics. So that's what we want. What boundaries are we putting around how we're going to behave to get there? Ethics seems really untrendy at the moment. Like we're all a bit too sophisticated for ethics. And I think we need ethics back, with some plurality. I think probably more plurality than in the past, But if you come together in an organization, this is the bit in organizational life that we're missing, this point where we go, that's what we're trying to achieve. And we'll do everything we can to try and achieve that, but we're not going to break people. We're not going to exploit people's poverty. We're not going to, whatever it might be, we're not going to cause irreparable harm to the environment in pursuit of that vision. I think we need to have that process put back into establishing governance and organisations. Not just organisational values, we're all friendly and kind and lovely and all the things that we are, but actually very explicit ethical boundaries about that we are saying that we do not want to cross in order to achieve that vision.
So can you give an example, Amanda? Like give me a real world ethical kind of stance.
Well, I think the environmental one is a good one that probably lots of organisations are wondering about at the moment. And I mean, maybe terrified to actually put it into practice. But to say, we want to supply a product and make a profit from it. I think that's fine for there to be companies that want to do that. But our ethics are, we don't want to, we want to be carbon neutral. I think that would be really, easy. People see that. But rather than shoehorning those ethics back in later on down the process, to start from those kinds of positions, so that people know not just what that organization exists to do, but the kind of boundaries within which it's operating. Because I think in the past, we had more shared ethical boundaries that everybody signed up to, right? Just within our country, within the much, much smaller, narrower worldviews that people existed within, because there was sort of a greater tendency to expected norms. We've had this explosion of plurality, which has lots of great benefits. But the downside is because we haven't come back in with any explicit ethics, everything just tends to kind of neoliberalism. Well, it's just make money at any cost. And everything else, and everything else is fine. And maybe a little bit later, somebody will go, oh, maybe we should have a diversity group, or maybe we shouldn't, maybe we should try and be a bit more inclusive. Maybe we should try and think about the environment a bit more. But it's always kind of at the end of the process rather than at the beginning. So I think governance for peace. So having a vision, being really clear about ethics, and then those things that I mentioned before about accountability. We need to ask how do we make ourselves accountable? So if we were getting this right, how would we know? Who would be able to tell us if we were getting it wrong? Really thinking about those questions, having that restorative consciousness about it, thinking about how do we live together tomorrow when things go wrong. Coming a bit back to that point about hope. When things go wrong, not just to say, well, somebody took the blame or we've kind of tied that up with a bow, but actually thinking about it with the question in mind, how do we carry on towards the vision that we wanted for tomorrow? Yeah, I'll probably think of some other things later on, but as you sprung it on me,
It emerged, Amanda. It
it
emerged.
emerged.
It's
But
such a
the
line.
ethics thing is something that I'm thinking a lot about at the moment.
It's very ethics, I think, sometimes in the current climate where money matters more than human life, in my opinion. And I think, I've, it's moral injury is something that I've been talking a lot about and training a lot about and talking to Luke. And I've done jobs where I didn't agree with the ethics of the organization I worked for, but I needed the money in order to survive. So I think certainly ethics sometimes comes down to a lot of privilege. And also, people are in the difficult question is, do I want to survive or do I want to be right?
Yeah,
What do I want to do here?
yeah. But I think when you know that you don't agree with it, then then you get a real transaction of labor value happening there. So recently had a discussion with a group of MBA students about this, and we talked about this idea of ethics, and someone said something really useful to me. They said that they'd been looking at the literature around adaptive leadership, kind of system leadership, and felt like this is just a conveyor belt to burnout. Like what from their experience and kind of looking at what the suggestion was, and then this question about ethics, they were like, oh, this suddenly makes sense because actually I'm working within a context where people are saying one thing about what our leadership should be, and what our response in the world should be, and doing the total opposite in actually the business decisions that we're making. So she felt like she could say, yeah, she'd come into this organization, yeah, we want to do this great work and we're going to improve the world in this way. And then sort of slowly but surely decisions just keep getting made that aren't backing that up, that are, as you say, because making money matter more important, money mattering more than human life. And that just chipping away at her capacity to to function, that just creating that stress. Because I think I know lots of people who have gone and worked for very clear profit-making organizations that are very out there with that is what they are doing. And there's a great deal of peace with that because you can say, okay, I know exactly what the bargain is here. And I can make that trade in that way. We'll be very transactional about it. And you're getting this from me, but you're not getting maybe some other things from it. You're not getting my enthusiasm. You're not getting my meaning. You're not getting my personal endorsement or a sense of belonging from me.
Yeah.
You're getting my time and you're getting some skills that I'm willing to sell to you as part of this. I think what gets weird is when we're moving a lot. This would be my other thing about the big systems and big challenges in organizational systems currently are the move towards meaning and belonging as a way of motivating people at work when the ethics are not very clear. And it's often in the work that I do, we talk about kind of transactional systems and relational systems. Um, and 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 the easy thing to say is like transactions bad, relations are good. You know, we want relational working, not transactional working. And largely I agree with that. However, I do think occasionally there are relational organizations that are like toxic, abusive relationships. Um, and a nice and it can be very pleasing to have just a nice, easy transactional job
Mm.
where someone says, you know, this is what we want from you, and we're going to give you this money, and we don't need you to think this is your life's work. It's not your vocation. You know, you're here to do this one thing, and you don't need to agree with everything you do, with everything our organization does. Just come and do X, Y, and Z. I think that um, there can be a lot of peace in that. That would be maybe you can talk a little bit more, Luke, about kind of negative and positive peace. That for me is like the analogy is like a negative peace job and a positive peace job and violent
Okay.
jobs. Okay. I think there are violent workplaces and they can be violent because it's an unfair transaction or it's a very violent, abusive relationship. And I think you can have positively peaceful jobs because people are in good, right relationship with each other and treating each other with respect, high expectations, real concern about each other's future, and wanting to work together to a shared goal. At the same time, I think perfectly possible to have that analogy of like a negative peace job where you go, you do your shift at, you know, at the burger bar or whatever, and you make someone else money, and that's fine. And you've done a very fair trade. No one's asking any more of you. Um, and yeah, I think it's easy to fall into this idea that like meaning and purpose is always really good. But I think without a clear, explicit statement of ethics, we get into some really sticky ground with what actually people are signing up for.
Hmm. Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. I've now got this idea of, do we need job descriptions with negative peace
Yeah.
responsibilities, positive peace responsibilities?
I don't know.
I was just thinking how, you're talking about belonging, that's become the latest buzzword in education. We've moved from resilience now into belonging.
Oh,
How
great.
do children belong? Which means we're going to again look at what we did with resilience is basically we want children to be more resilient within an education system that doesn't work for them. That's what we mean
Yeah.
by it, rather than change the
And
system.
now we want them to belong to something
To belong
that
to
they
something that
can't
treats them
possibly.
like rubbish and doesn't embrace them as a holistically as a child. So it's going to be exactly the
Yeah.
same thing again because we're looking to change the child, not the system.
Yeah.
So you're saying systems matter more than
They
people's?
do look, but I've written down here that actually there was a bit where Amanda said that leaders and the sort of power imbalance, I can do what I want, is actually no, people and their mentality matter more because, and I've completely forgotten the point I was going to make at this thing. Hang on. Because of their mental health and matters in what they judge as successful. So they worship the money and the power means that they're messing up the systems. Whereas if their mental health was good, you and I don't know if you heard it, Amanda, but we did a whole podcast with Nick Defell who talked about how early privilege in a lot of cases molds people to be, well, not emotionless, but
Low empathy.
low empathy. And therefore, they then go on to lead the country, they go on to lead big companies and lead the system, and it is about the win rather than
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah, you often get the feeling like some people are taking big, impactful decisions on behalf of other people, like they're playing a wide game.
Mm.
That's the bit that gets me, like, because it doesn't really matter to them. Um, if you've not had that experience, if you've not lived in a council house, if you've not relied on welfare benefits, if you didn't go to a state school, it's not.
You
It's
believe it's
all.
choice, that you can
It's
just work your way out of
it's
it.
all a
That's the
bit.
mentality.
Yeah, and it's all a
Yeah.
bit. It's hypothetical.
Mm.
It's like moving things around, um, and um, and at the same time, um, yeah, that I've definitely observed that. And while people are doing jobs in a way that where I can look at it and go, I think you're kind of approaching this like you're just having a jolly old time playing a good wide game. It's like a big game of capture the
Yeah.
flag. Um, they do really care as well. That's what makes it so difficult because you can't just say, "Oh, you're just heartless," and it's all sort of jumbled up, wonderful humans that feel all these complex things. But just what you were saying about resilience as well, I think to make decisions on behalf of a lot of other people, which for me is what leadership all comes down to, and why we need to talk about accountability. It's someone either through power or authority invested in them are making choices that have a huge impact on lots of other people. You like that is hard to hold emotionally. And you do need some resilience from that. But I think often where people fail is there's resilience like a raincoat, and there's resilience like a tree, and like resilience like a raincoat is like nothing gets in. It's all got to run off. Um, but actually eventually like raincoats wear out and then they're no good
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I try and encourage people to be like resilient like a big tree that can take the wind. And actually, even when big trees fall over, they're often still alive and still keep growing,
Mm.
and new stuff grows out of them. And trying to get a different mental model of what it might mean to be resilient. Resilient doesn't mean I never get touched by anything, because we need to be able
No,
to retain
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
We need to retain that humanity, and be
Part of
able to,
resilient is asking for help as well and
yeah,
saying, yeah,
but asking for help, but feeling things very strongly,
yeah.
letting things touch us. Um, Not feeling like in order to carry on with this job, I can't possibly hear the stories of how people have been harmed by poor healthcare, because that will mean I won't be able to make decisions about it. This is, um, or
But
it's
that kind of
or it's
segues.
unprofessional to feel that as an emotion.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get back to being able to say, yes, we want we want people who are in leadership to be level-headed and steadfast, and they also really need to be able to feel when things are when there have been real harms, um, and that that feels like a real person thing. I like your sort of person versus the system.
Well, I
Obviously,
was just going to,
obviously,
it's
I
the
think it's
people.
both, but
Yeah, it is both, but we kind of banter with each other. They both sort of affect each other.
yeah,
It's a two-way thing. But that also leads us nicely to the beginning of the podcast when we talk about accountability. And, accountability looks like, does it look like sacking somebody or somebody resigning? And then you've got somebody new in who hasn't learned from that. Whereas they can go, actually, yeah, you're right. I dropped the ball on that one. I've made a mistake. I've learned from it. This is what I'm putting forward. So then I am going to be better in my role as a result of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that is the question. How are we going to live together tomorrow?
Mm.
No, this example the live example at the moment.
Mm.
How are we going to live together tomorrow? Who who is asking the people who, who really matter here, the, people who have been victimized in this awful
Yeah.
system of abuse? Like, how should we live together tomorrow?
Mm.
Um,
What is
what
the end goal?
yeah,
What is the end goal
what would need
here?
to happen to feel like there had been some restoration of trust here?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. That's not a question for me to answer anyway. But I don't think that is the question that is pointing people towards the answers that we're currently getting, which is like head on a plate or some theatre about
Yeah.
having done something.
What's your long-term aim here? What do you
Yeah.
actually want out of it? This isn't. Luke, do you have any other questions?
I am good. It's been always fascinating talking to Amanda. She has got me thinking now about governance and complex systems. And so I'm going to have a bit of a ponder on
Mm,
that one. But I do like the idea of governance for organizational peace a lot.
yeah. Amanda, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. This is the first time I've met you. Hopefully not the last time I've met you. Absolutely love that. And yeah, I've written down some things to very much think about, but also you said some things like, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, that sort of reinforces what I think. And yeah, I agree with you on that one. And yeah, I like it. And my raison d'etre, I don't know if that sounds French, it sounds posh, but what I tell myself is as I can't make lives perfect, but I can make lives better. And and I think systems sometimes need to be, let's not look for the perfect system, let's just look for a better system than we've got now. And like you said, small steps. Thank you so much. Luke, do you want to give us any pearls of wisdom before we say goodbye and everybody starts crying because they miss us?
Um, well, I think just to say, like, Amanda's given us a whirlwind tour
Mm,
of some of the big challenges that I think are in systems that don't often get answered around, like, what does governance look like in a system? What does it mean to deal with violence in systems as well? Particularly when we don't necessarily associate like some workplaces would say, like, we're never violent, like I'm in an accounting firm, for example, compared to a prison. But there are, the definition of violence can be changed to include the forms of weaponization that happen in the workplace, which he's been pulling out as well.
mm.
But yeah, I'm still thinking about the governance of organizational peace. That's the bit
I
that,
was thinking with the violence in terms of you feel psychologically unsafe, that what they're doing is making you feel psychologically unsafe and therefore under threat. But yeah, that's something I'm going to think about. Amanda, is there anything you want to promote? Where can we find you? Where can we find out more about you?
Yeah, I would love for people to sign up for my newsletter, um, which you can do on the Building 20 website, which is building20.uk. And that
I'll
should
put a
take you
link
right
in
there. And
in
there'll be a
the
little
thing
sticky
for
bar.
that.
Please sign up to the website, and then you can hear about it. It's very infrequent, um, 6 times a year if I can manage it.
Has
Yeah,
more
we go
impact
we
then.
go for quality.
Yes.
Quality, something to say, but just to keep in touch. The other surprising thing I'm doing is giving up LinkedIn. That's
Are you? That's interesting
yeah,
because
because I don't like it, Sam.
there's so much crap on there, isn't
And
there?
I like hearing from other people, so I will go on it and like things. I'll go and look for the posts of you two being very nice to each other and like them, and I like
Thank you.
supporting other people I know and hearing about it. But I came to the realization that that's not the way that I want to keep in touch with the people who I know about what I'm doing.
Mm.
Um, and um, and I'm feeling okay about it now on the 9th of February. So
Love
it's the New
it.
Year's resolution kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that sits better with me. But because of that, please sign up for my newsletter.
Okay, we'll do.
Well,
And then
definitely
you'll
do
have my
that.
email address and you can send me an email. We can have lovely
Perfect.
conversations. And I'm always very happy to chat to people. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I will put the link in, all the blurb that goes with the podcast. And I see you've got a free online course as well that's on the website as well,
I do, yeah, about
which would be good.
complexity, competent leadership.
Right, I'm definitely going to
So
do that
if
one.
this idea of complexity has been buzzing around and you think, what on earth do I do about that? A lot of what I talked about today about hope and setting visions, and as I say, it's always the same three questions.
Yeah, love that. Perfect. Thank you so much, Luke. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for listening to this podcast. Please subscribe if you liked it. If you didn't like it, listen again because you've got it wrong and you obviously need to change your mind on that one. Please do take care of yourself and we'll see you in the next one.